This article that is talking about child marriage is very important, and it's very important to know and understand in the context of these forced birther states that are forcing women and girls to keep these babies, and these loosening of regulations as far as child labor laws. All of this goes hand in hand with working to continue to keep women and girls an underclass, or basically slaves to this patriarchal system. This article entitled Child Marriage Havens Emerging Across America. You need to know and understand. And like I said, it goes hand in hand with Project 2025, with these forced birthers, with these Christo fascists, because if you keep a minor married, that is going to basically keep her an indentured servant for a good chunk of her life. So let's look at this article. As more states make child marriage illegal, the places where it is still lawful are emerging as havens for ceremonies which can devastate the lives of young people, typically young women. A Newsweek investigation reveals the disturbing reality that a lack of unified action against child marriage can establish. Californian Sarah Tasneem was just 15 when her father arranged for her to be married in a spiritual ceremony to a stranger almost twice her age. She was visibly pregnant, she said, when they left the San Francisco Bay Area in the mid-90s to embark on a road trip to Reno, Nevada, where she was legally married. Nobody asked me if this was something I wanted, she told Newsweek. I was a very petite teenager and I was clearly pregnant. Nobody asked me, do you want me to call your mom? Nothing. That day, basically, I signed everything away. At the time, Nevada law permitted minors to marry with the consent of one parent. It only took a signature from a parent or guardian, basically on a permission slip that was notarized. The marriage certificate meant that her mother, who was not aware of the marriage until it occurred, could no longer seek statutory rape charges against her husband. From then, she was controlled in every aspect of her life, she said. When she became pregnant in a second time, she was devastated. I was so upset because I knew this was just one more thing that was going to keep me trapped in this marriage. This is a part that's important for you to see. As a minor, she could not file for divorce herself or seek refuge at a DV shelter. She's basically stuck. She can get married, but she can't get divorced. She is a prisoner. She's an indentured servant. She's basically an enslaved girl. It was 7 years before she was able to leave her husband, she said, and another 3 before she could divorce him. There are just so many barriers for minors to escape a marriage that it actually creates an impossible legal trap for them. Tasneem, now 43, said she was stunned to find out while working on a research project in 2017 that marriage for those under 18 was legal in all 50 states and DC. Since then, she's been advocating to end child marriage. Nearly 300,000 children, some as young as 10, were married in the U.S. between 2000 and 2018, according to Unchained at Last, an organization working to end child marriage in the U.S. The vast majority were young girls wed to adult men, the organization said. Child marriage is defined as marriage where at least one of the parties is under 18. The UN calls it a human rights violation and a form of forced marriage, given at least one or both parties have not given their full, free, and informed consent. It leaves minors open to abuse and vulnerable since they have limited legal rights. But since 2018, 12 states have ended child marriage, raising the legal age of marriage to 18. New Hampshire could soon follow. Legislation to end child marriage has been approved by the New Hampshire House and Senate and is awaiting Republican Governor Chris Sununu's signature. Sununu's office has been contacted for contact via email. Meanwhile, a bill to prohibit child marriage is pending in Cali, but those advocating to end child marriage say that while progress is being made, it's not happening fast enough. The patchwork of state laws in the U.S., they say, make it easy for minors to be transported to be wed in states where child marriage remains legal. It's always been very easy to do, and it always will be easy to do, said Frady Rice, the founder and executive director of Unchained at Last. When one state ends child marriage, you'll often see in a neighboring state that still allows it, or even a few states over, you'll see those numbers increase. I would say a fairly large percentage of the survivors that we work with were not married in the state where they live. She noted that data compiled by Unchained at Last found 3 minors that were married in 2020, but that number tripled to 9 in 2021, the year that Pennsylvania, New York, and Rhode Island ended child marriage. Now, here is a map where child marriage is legal by state or illegal. In the states that are colored in red, you have to be a minimum age of 16. So look at all of these red states. In orange, you have to be at least 17. And in yellow, there's no minimum age. You can just get married. Purple is where child marriage is illegal. And there's 2 green. You have to be at least 15. So this is something that obviously needs to change. The solution, she said, is for every U.S. state and D.C. to raise the minimum age for marriage to 18 with no exceptions. If New Hampshire becomes the next state to end child marriage, it leaves Maine as the only state in the Northeast where a 17-year-old can be legally married with parental consent. The state last year raised the minimum marriage age to 17. Marriage tourism is a big business, Rice said, adding it's why many states do not impose residency requirements for weddings. Maine now needs to be very concerned that it doesn't become the new destination state for child marriage. Girls are only as safe as the weakest law allows them to be. Casey Swegman, Director of Public Policy at Tarahi Justice Center, told Newsweek. There are still lots of states that allow child marriage that have no residency requirements whatsoever. So minors can be brought from states with strong laws into states with weak laws, be married in that state, and either remain in that state or be brought back to their state of residency. We have a sort of mishmash of laws on this in the United States, but more likely than not, their marriage will be recognized in the state where they live. States collect and report data on marriages differently, and some do not collect residency information, making it difficult to know how many minors have traveled out of state to get married. But she said that when Virginia strengthened its marriage laws in 2016 to make it harder for minors to marry, neighboring Maryland saw an uptick in child marriages. A couple of years after Virginia strengthened its laws for the first time, we did dig in with Maryland on that cross-border dynamic, and we did see an uptick. I think we will unfortunately see more of that as more states strengthen their laws. So it's really important to us that all 50 states get to 18. So no one state or jurisdiction becomes the quote unquote destination for child marriage. Tasneem advocated for legislation that ended child marriage in Washington. She called it a huge win, but she said she fears it means that many children will be transported to her home state of California. Because of the legal patchwork, adults who want to marry children can shop around and find states that allow it. Now that Washington has ended child marriage, of course, the predators will travel. They can go to California and easily get married. Unfortunately, California has no age floor to get married with parental consent and judicial review. People view those as safeguards that will help minors, she said, but they actually hurt minors because most minors who are being forced into marriage are being forced by their parents. Swegman says she's most concerned that Washington, D.C. will become a major destination for child marriages. D.C., an incredibly lax law, she said. 16 and 17-year-olds can get married with consent of just one parent and without having to go before a judge. Our nation capital is actually sitting at the center of this region as a sort of wide open destination, quite frankly, for anyone who would want to marry a child easily. Rice says some parents won't simply travel to the nearest state that allows child marriage. They may travel further to where laws are most lax. You have to pass simple, common sense legislation that costs nothing, harms no one, to end human rights abuse that destroys girls' lives and creates a nightmarish legal trap for minors. And with that, I'm going to end it. I do not know if you all knew that these laws were in place like this, where you could just, pick a travel destination where you could just legally get married to a kid. And yes, I do know that sometimes these girls are looking to escape their parents and their situations by jumping into this. But having a situation where mostly girls are marrying adult men sets them up for the okie doke down the road when they want to separate, when they do finally get the rights to do so. Anyways, jump in the comments. Let me know what you think about this one. And don't forget to like, comment, and share. I was asked to talk about the draft bill that's going around because it seems like there is a lot of discourse going around with some things that are not being true being spread. So these are some of the things. If you just type in draft bill, no, the U.S. did not bring back the draft. Here's what happened. Fox is talking about it. Newly passed defense bill registers men 18 to 26 for military. So you can kind of look around for what is happening. You might want to read a couple of different news articles. This is the one that I did read, The Independent, and I did read one of Fox's news ones. But so this is what is going on. This is from The Independent. Internet confuses people over U.S. military draft change. Here's the truth. Some in Congress have proposed reforming America's rarely used conscription system, but the changes are far from done. And this is also where we have to remember the process of creating a federal law, how it has to go through both chambers. Whatever bill that comes out of one chamber has to be signed off on and voted on by the other chamber with no changes or amendments to it. And then it has to go off and be signed. So even if a bill did pass through the House, it is not fully done. And that's the case with this anyway. So let's get fully into the article. Congress has not voted to make U.S. women eligible for conscription, nor has it resolved to automatically enroll all young American men into the military draft database, at least not yet. Numerous excitable posts on TikTok, Reddit, and Twitter in the last month have claimed that sweeping reforms to the USA's rarely used draft system are underway. Some focus on a bill passed by the House of Representatives that would enroll young men automatically instead of requiring them to fill out paperwork, while others pointed to a U.S. Senate proposal to enroll women as well. But neither of these proposals is a done deal, and neither provides any evidence that the U.S. is secretly preparing to draft Americans to fight in Ukraine or some other planned future war, as some online commenters have alleged. Last Friday, the Republican-controlled House passed a new version of the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, allowing the U.S. government to automatically pull records from other federal databases to enroll men aged 18 to 25 into the draft system. Men of that age are already legally required to enroll in the draft system in case they are ever called up, on pain of criminal penalties. The new law would make it harder for them to refuse or avoid doing so. However, this new version of the NDAA also includes controversial partisan provisions, such as restricting abortion or transgender health care for military personnel and their families, meaning it is unlikely to be passed by the Senate. So that is, that is what they do. They put in all kind of things, and and like I said in the beginning, whatever goes through one house, one side of the house, has to be signed exactly as it is. So that's one of the reasons why you have got to remember how laws pass in this country. Meanwhile, the Senate Armed Forces Committee has introduced its own version of the NDAA, which would make women eligible for the draft. Groundbreaking as that would be, is also something that the Senate has repeatedly proposed over the past few years without ever managing to get it passed by both chambers of Congress. Here's the article from News Nation. No, the U.S. did not bring back the draft. Here's what happened. Social media posts claiming the U.S. has reinstated the draft are false. Possible misinterpretations of a suggested change to the nation's selective service system. The U.S. House of Representatives Friday passed a measure within the National Defense Authorization Act that would automatically enroll men with the selective service system. The federal agency documents all people registered for selective service, meaning mandatorily, the agency would provide that information to the Defense Department in case of a draft, although one is not currently in place. So all of the people that are pontificating on social media, and then the other people that just read those posts and take it up and reshare it without really knowing what's going on, they're just causing alarm for no reason. So just take this all with a grain of salt. This is no reason to be alarmed or scared. All the fear mongering that the Biden administration is doing this, or we're about to go to war, or whatever It's all like inflammatory. And like I said, once again, it takes a lot to pass a federal bill. It really does, into law. It takes a lot. And the Congress, I'm sorry, both the House of Representatives and the Senate have got to pass the exact same bill in order for it to happen. So jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. What have you seen being tossed around social media? Don't forget to like, comment, and share.